Good afternoon. It is Saturday, December 19th, 2020. It's about 3:25 p.m. here. For those that are joining us, this is the monthly chapter meeting and educational session of the John Birch Society chapter located in Oswego, New York, but also covering the vast area of the greater Syracuse region. My name is Joe Provost. I'm the chapter leader of the Greater Syracuse Regional Chapter. Joined with me today is our field coordinator, Kip Webster. Kip, thanks for joining with me today.
My pleasure. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. So today we are going to go through a few things that we have to for the month of December. Just go through a few things in our bulletin, and then we have some videos to share with you, as well as some Q&A with Kip on some things. Today we're going to focus our efforts educationally on the conspiracy, the New World Order, and some of the people behind it, and what we can do as members of the John Birch Society, or even as friends of the society, on what we can do to combat some of these things. Um, and I think Kip's going to talk particularly about how we as members united together in a chapter effort can do that, and how we can spread our efforts throughout our community. So before we go into anything else, I want to go through and share um, a link, not a link, but a clip. I'm gonna pull up my bulletin. Kip, let me know if you can see the bulletin on your screen.
Yes, I can. Thank
All
you.
right, great. I just want to make sure everybody can see that. So we'll go through this a little bit here. So this is our December bulletin. If you haven't had a chance to read it yet, I know it's getting late in the month. It's the 19th, but it's still not too late. Make sure that for especially for those of you that are newer members, you understand kind of the outlay of the bulletin every month. So we're going to have a focus for the month, and if you can see here, I'm going to try to put my cursor. Uh, can you see what I'm circling there? It says support your local police. That's going to be our focus. So every month we want to look for that box, and that's going to kind of direct us towards what efforts that we want to primarily focus on throughout the month. Following that, we're going to get a short description of what those efforts should be, followed by a forward, in this case by Bill Hahn, who's the CEO of the John Birch Society. If you haven't had a chance to read that, please do so. It's very important to understand what's going on in the world. And I think Bill Hahn gives a really great expose of kind of what's going on following the election. Um, he starts off in his column saying, quote, "Frankly, we did win this election. This is a major fraud in our nation," close quote, by President Trump. But I think he goes on to explain more the fact that um, is there fraud? I think we can all agree on that. Is this going to be corrected? Are we going to see a Donald Trump presidency for the next 4 years? My estimation, highly doubtful. But that doesn't mean that we don't still have work to do. Doesn't change our efforts as members of the John Birch Society. And I think that's what Bill Hahn wanted to get through to us. Whatever happens, we still have a responsibility to educate ourselves, educate our friends, our family, and our community. So as we get through this here, again, Bill Hahn continues to just go through and explain that chapters, in this part of the article, he says JBS chapters need to focus on being more and more active over the coming months, as no other outlet or organization will be putting legs under this issue to defend the Republic. We'll be ramping up our campaigns with plenty of new materials on the very subject that you can use to help other people and bring them into the organization. Our enemy has been teetering for quite some time, but now they see a real opportunity to make headway. Let's ensure they do not. And if that's not a battle cry for action, then I don't know what is. So let's ensure that we read this article and share it accordingly, and be prepared for some action over the next year. And with that being said, again, this is the last month of the year, so I know some folks have a lot of things going on and may not be able to contribute as much in their action. But please, as you get those action alerts from myself, from Appleton, and other emails or resources, please be sure to take action. If you can at least do those small little tidbits, whether it be sending a letter, an email, making a phone call, especially regarding the latest alert that I sent out, HR 8428. I think it was 8428 or it was 8424. Excuse me for that for a moment. Let me just go down here to our alerts just to be sure I did not speak out of turn. And Kip, if you can, 8424. Make sure you read that, understand that, and act accordingly. And there's another one that was sent out recently regarding making sure that the Chinese Communist Party is labeled as such. I recently got a response back from our congressman here, basically stating that it is not up in the House yet as a because it's in committee regarding the Chinese Communist Party. However, he will keep my thoughts in mind. We all know that's a standard boilerplate response. However, we'll see what happens when and if it makes any headway in Congress. So things to keep in mind. Another couple things that I just noticed in the bulletin that we should try to keep an eye on is that as the new representatives and senators come in January, we need to make sure that we introduce ourselves and let them know that they're going to be held accountable for their votes and for their actions. So introduce yourselves, give them a clean slate, of course, but also keep the pressure on because there's a lot at stake over the next year or more. A few other things I want to comment on recruiting. If you have not talked to somebody, even one person in the last month, I urge you to do so, to find somebody, share some materials with, whether they be a family member, a friend, somebody at church, somebody at work, um, whoever. If you know of somebody that even simple conversation, if they talk about the problems in the world, or they talk about the fraud that they see, or they talk about the people that are undermining, legitimate government officials, well, they're already on the track of understanding that there's a problem, there's something deep seated behind what's going on. Well, simply put, they're on the right track for understanding that there is a conspiracy, and it's our duty to educate ourselves and then educate them on who's behind that and how we can fight that and bring it to light. So as we get going here, I just want to make sure you understand that. So try to encourage them to come to a meeting, encourage them to join in society, purchase materials. If they have any problems or if they have questions about joining or about accessing the website or about getting materials from our bookstore, they can contact me and or Kip. Right, Kip? You can help them with that.
Oh,
Getting
no
set up.
problem. Yeah, yes, I would be happy to.
And if you haven't heard already, Alex Newman's new book, The Deep State, has been published and it's available at shopjbs.org, as well as there's the new calendar for 2021 is now available. I have my 2021 behind me here. I have to get my 2021, but I gotta find a few books that I think I might want to justify the shipping charge. But please get those. Those are great calendars. The one from this year was great. Being a historian of the American Revolution, I love this year's. It was great. I love the images. Can't get a better calendar there for yourself. So as we get going here, just keep in mind, some of you have already been aware, but there's been a lot of action alerts throughout the month on different topics. I know that Mike Friend has been doing a lot of work or attempting to do a lot of work with the some of the local groups in the area for the Support Your Local Police. We did send in our information to you, Kip, on the committee. Did that get sent in, or what's the status of that right now for the Support Your Local Police Committee?
Yeah, I did send that in. I think it's probably because of the season right now that they're a little bit behind on things.
Sure. All right, we'll just keep an eye on that, but there, nevertheless, there's still quite a few people I'm sure that we need to touch base with. I know that one of the gentlemen in the area that I've been working with, who I think he may end up joining with us shortly, and him and some of his other associates are thinking about joining.
Well,
That
that's terrific.
that were involved in the initial rally that I gone to, and now I we're texting back and forth, on a pretty regular basis. And this morning, it sounds like he would be on today. He said on the meeting, but he was unable to. He's in the middle of a move, so he's got a lot going on there. But I think he sounds like he's been reading the New American. I don't know in print or online, but he's been impressed with some things he's seen, and he's impressed with some of the materials for the Support Your Local Police campaign that's available. And in his words, it's, why reinvent the wheel when everything's already there. Um, so that's a good example of just some great footwork by our members to engage with other groups, and but also at the same time provide a foundation which to build upon in the community. So let's keep that momentum going over the next months. I don't foresee this quote unquote issue of police being attacked, both financially and literally, anytime soon, unfortunately, especially with all the new developments we've seen in the country over the last few weeks. So I think it's going to be even more important to stay on top of this and ensure the committee stays active in the coming months. Would you agree with that, Kip?
I totally agree with you on that. Yes.
Is there anything you want to add to the support your local police, Kip? Anything that we should be kind of keeping an eye on or being aware of or making sure that we hone in on our efforts with?
I think the most important thing is to be consistent. Make sure you try to do something as often as you can to keep the members involved in it, and to stay in contact with the local police. Uh, we know that they're under heavy attack right now, and they do appreciate it when our members stop by and drop off materials to them, or even just as they're walking by, if they're on the street, saying, "Hey, we support you 100%," give them the thumbs up. So that's all important. And we are getting more and more members dropping off material at the police stations. And they come back later on and they see that they are on a table, like near the entryway, so people can pick them up. So they are having an impact, and they're building a relationship with the police, which is important.
And I think you bring up a good point there, Kip, is it's all about relationships.
Yes, it is. It's you nailed it right with that. It is about building trust and relationships.
And I think once you start building that relationship with your local police, whether it be your police, your local police department members, your sheriffs, etc., they start to see you as an asset as you build that relationship, and they're going to call upon you at a time when it's needed. And even if right now there's not a lot of necessarily communication, or whether maybe they take some materials, but there's not more of a conversation that maybe even you wish you could have over time as you provide them with resources and support. They're going to call upon you as members and as communities to do more in the community, as they see that you have such a great rapport with them, and also with unifying and helping them be supported in the community. When things do start to go one way or the other, they know that they have somebody behind them that cares for them, respects them, and has an organization, most importantly, has an organization that can provide them with that support. And I think that's going to be the key going forward here, is having that relationship, and that relationship is backed by an organization which quote unquote has their back now and into the future. Um, it's great to say, it's great to give that thumbs up, and I think they need that. But it's also great to know that it's not just one or two people, but it's an organization at large that has their back.
Right. And I'll give you a good example. And this is from several years ago, not that far back, but we were setting up a street fair booth out on Long Island, I think out in Mineola, in fact. And we got there early. We set up our tent. Then we set up our support your local police banner and our Constitution Solution banner. And a couple of policemen who were just there to direct traffic around and help the booths get set up. They came by and we offered them some material, and they said, "Yeah, well, this is nice. We'll take it." And it turned out their station was just a couple of blocks down from where our tent was. So we got two members went down there during the street fair, and they went into police station and they offered them a stack of one of our magazines about the war on the police, or one of those issues, and they took them. And one had a JBS, not a JBS business card, but a card saying he was a chapter leader in that area for the John Birch Society. Well, he got a call from the sergeant a couple of days later, and they appreciated the outreach. And two of the police officers had mentioned there's a group down there handing out material to support us. And they said, "We know you have some kind of meetings if you're the Birch Society. Would you like a couple of our police officers to come down and from our outreach department?" And at the next meeting, these two guys came down and they explained the things that the police go through on their normal days. And they thanked us for supporting them. And we took pictures, and they stayed and had dinner with us, and then went on, just had a bite to eat with us. Uh, but that to me is making the JBS part of the community. And it's also letting the police know that we support them. And it was a very positive thing. And I'd like to see that happen more often if it could.
That's a great story of action and follow up. So that's just something to keep in the back of our minds, I think, as we get going here, to be able to do a little bit more. And I think one of the keys too for our chapter, and I think for a lot of other chapters, is to realize that while there might be lockdowns in play, or while there might be all these rules and regulations in play, the reality is that in this area, in this region, the local police and the sheriffs are not on board with going after people for breaking a lockdown, for breaking these restrictions. They believe that the individual has the ultimate responsibility to protect themselves and their families. And a perfect example of this was, and I think I mentioned this last month, I don't know if I told you, Kip, but the sheriff of the county published a letter. In short, it started off stating that, at the Justice Center, which is connected to the sheriff's department, because the sheriffs take care of the correctional facility as well as the police department. He said that there was some positive cases. He didn't say there was any sickness, because if you notice, they're changing the phraseology of COVID-19. Now, COVID-19 is not about people dying and being sick, but it's about total cases,
Mhm.
because it doesn't suit the narrative anymore. Before it was all these deaths, all these deaths, all these deaths. Now it's just cases. Um, so you can't prove, now they're not saying anything about people getting sick or dying. They're just saying cases. That being said, he said that there's been a few cases in the Justice Center. A few inmates and some officers had tested positive. Everybody was going to be tested just to, because they have to. Um, and he went on to explain that, he goes, but as we go through this holiday season, I encourage each of you to take appropriate measures as you see fit to protect yourselves and your family. Stay healthy, maintain distance when you can, be healthy. But he went on to say that, with all that being said, I want you to enjoy your holiday, and my officers, my deputies will not be knocking on your door asking how many people are in your house for Thanksgiving meal. We're not going to be policing masking, regulations. We want you to enjoy the day just as much as we want to enjoy the day ourselves, and we will be out, he says, enforcing appropriate laws that are on the books, and catching criminals, not seeking to destroy people's family and holiday spirit. And I think that's a perfect example of a sheriff. And he went on to explain how it's unconstitutional to start with to do so, based on the governor's mandate. But I think it's a perfect example of a sheriff's, and I think we're seeing this more and more now, especially in upstate New York, where the sheriffs are saying Absolutely not. We're not going to enforce an unconstitutional mandate. The New York State Police Association, or the Association of Police Chiefs and Sheriffs, came out with a very long statement, essentially advocating for the same thing. So we're seeing sheriffs that are upholding their constitutional responsibility, and not kowtowing to the liberal elites, and understand that they are I would say submissive to their electorate, but also they understand that they have a responsibility, and that they're going to protect the people that they were sworn to serve. So
Mhm.
that's a perfect example of a local effort in our area to police upholding the Constitution, the law, but also respecting and understanding that the people are there to support them as well. So I think it's a hand in hand thing that we're going to see more and more now. So we're going to keep that up.
Well, that's great news. Really good to hear that somebody who is elected official like that is following their oath of office and the Constitution. And I think it gives you guys up there a good opportunity to really uh, make a connection with them, since we're a constitutionalist organization, and let them know how much we appreciate that they are doing the right thing. They're not letting politics get in the way, and that should really help your support local police committee uh, build a good foundation out there.
Absolutely.
And I'm just thinking, I know I sent that support your local police thing in, but I know a lot of people are on vacations. Could you resend that to me this weekend?
Yeah, I can say
And
that. Yep.
I'll send it directly. I got a new boss too, and I will send it to my new boss and the national director just to make sure that they have it.
Yeah,
In
absolutely.
case
I'll make sure I get
something
that
got
back out
lost
to
in the
you.
shuffle here. It only takes a minute, and
Oh yeah.
it's worth making sure that they got it. I know they just put out a memo that they're way behind in a lot of things right now because of the holiday season. So I'm thinking if anything went wrong, this would be the time it would go wrong, and they would
Right.
lose something like that.
Sure. Yeah, we'll get that back out to you just to make sure we get it all our paperwork situated. And then as we get going here, I mean, I'm showing this portion here to show you the picture of Christian Gomez Anarchy in America series. You can find it on YouTube through the JBS YouTube channel, as well as a DVD through shopjbs.org. I encourage you to go through that and to understand it a little bit more. So we might be able to do a series on that here shortly. We're going to talk here shortly about some of the ideas that we have for the next year. Some series that we want to hold both in person and virtual if necessary. But we'll talk about that shortly. Some of the things we can do for action. New American. So please, if you're not getting your magazines, make sure that you contact the support team at thenewamerican.com. Make sure you get those magazines. If you need extras, I have some here. I believe you can get some through shopjbs.org for some extra reprints. And keep in mind, if it's an issue that's pertinent to the times, keep in mind that you may not be able to get a reprint after so long because they'll just run out. Um, so that, and the other thing I know is if you don't subscribe to the newamerican.com, their alerts, they have daily alerts. That's some great stuff to keep up to date on what's going on currently. Obviously, every 2 weeks you get the magazine. There's some pertinent information in there, but every day there's articles that are being published about current events. So if you're not already subscribed to there, do that. Go to newamerican.com, www.thenewamerican.com, and subscribe for daily alerts. And I also believe, based on what I've seen recently, the New American, and I'm not sure about the society itself, but the New American is going to be publishing an Android and an iOS app for download. I don't know what the timeline is, but they have made some verbiage known on the website that is coming soon. So for those of you that use your mobile devices often, that might come in pretty handy. Just to have that access right on your phone rather than having to just go online. You can access it via an app. So I don't know, Kip, have you heard anything about that? I've only seen a little bit about it come out.
No, not yet. No.
So we'll just stay tuned on that, but make sure that again, you get those alerts and you're sharing that. Um, and we go from there. Towards the back of the bulletin, here are some gifts. Here's the calendar I was telling you about. Here and some other things that you can purchase. And obviously, if you go to shopgbs.org, you're going to find a lot more there available to you. The Constitution Solution lecture series, we're going to talk about that over the next months here about hosting a series. Hopefully, we can get into a library, some other public venues to open it up to more people. Just as a note, if you are keeping your New Americans like I do, I recommend you get this New American binder. I have them. I use them, so I try to fit a year's worth in there. It's kind of tight, but I try to keep a year's worth of New Americans in this binder. You never know, 5 years, 10 years down the road, so some issue you want to pull back out or you want to reference materials. It's a good way to keep it safe for yourself. And then that's the end of the bulletin there. So I'm going to stop the share. We're going to get back to our video session here. So with that being said, that's kind of things we're focusing on this month. If you haven't already sent me in your details for your action this month, I've received a few of them already. Make sure you let me know exactly what you did so we can get you counted for the monthly report. So a couple of you have asked, they said you haven't done quote unquote much of anything. But then I asked you if you've sent out emails or if you've done any of the action alerts or if you've shared videos or whatnot, and you said yes to all that. That's action, okay? Not all of us have the luxury of, some of us are retired and some of us have, more loose schedules than others, and we can do more things. But again, everything that you do does matter. So don't think that the little that you do doesn't matter. The little or the lot that you can do is very greatly appreciated and advances the cause of our freedom to fight this conspiracy and to bring to light what's really going on behind the scenes, especially in the deep state. So please, 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 if you haven't already, let me know what actions you have done, as little or as a lot as you can recall, so we can get you counted for this month as we go into the new year. Now at this time, I want to segue ourselves into our education session, and we're going to focus on the conspiracy. And before I get into it too much, I'd like to show you a short video. This is a legacy or a classic video. This is coming right from the words of our founder, Robert Welch. So I think you'll enjoy this short video. It's only about 7 or 8 minutes long. And then we're going to come back and Kip, at that point, I want to get your take on the video and talk about how it's pertinent even in our day today, even that many years later.
Sure. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So now we have to figure this out again. All right. All right, here we go.
A part of that plan, of course, is to induce the gradual surrender of American sovereignty, piece by piece and step by step, to various international organizations, of which the United Nations is the outstanding but far from the only example. Here are the aims for the United States. 1, greatly expanded government spending for every conceivable means of getting rid of ever larger sums of American money as wastefully as possible. 2, higher and then much higher taxes. 3, an increasingly unbalanced budget despite the higher taxes. 4, wild inflation of our currency. 5, government controls of prices, wages, and materials, supposedly to combat inflation. 6, greatly increased socialistic controls over every operation of our economy and every activity of our daily lives. This is to be accompanied naturally and automatically by a correspondingly huge increase in the size of our bureaucracy and in both the cost and reach of our domestic government. 7, far more centralization of power in Washington and the practical elimination of our state lines. There is a many-faceted drive at work to have our state lines eventually mean no more within the nation than our county lines do now within the states. 8, the steady advance of federal aid to and control over our educational system, leading to complete federalization of our public education. 9, a constant hammering into the American consciousness of the horror of modern warfare, the beauties and the absolute necessity of peace, peace always on communist terms, of course. And 10, the consequent willingness of the American people to allow the steps of appeasement by our government which amount to a piecemeal surrender of the rest of the free world and of the United States itself. So brush the insider's dust out of your eyes, my friends, and the communist soap suds out of your brain, and ask yourselves in all honesty, what on earth is wrong with the United States simply minding its own business? Or with having its foreign policy function primarily for the safety and benefit of the American people. Which is exactly what we had done for the first 140 years of our existence as a nation, to the incredible advantage of ourselves and everybody else. Everybody, that is, except a numerically small clique of power-lusting conspirators who had somehow inflicted themselves on a gullible world. While we turn to a very brief summarization of what we hope the John Birch Society will help and even sometimes lead the American people to accomplish during the next 15 years. 1, our first and most important specific undertaking should be to restore the complete independence of the United States. This includes our resolution to get us out of the United Nations and get the United Nations out of the United States. Two, we must once again make our money freely redeemable in gold at some realistic price. And we must take all practicable legislative steps to prevent a recurrence of the enormous thievery and other subversive crimes that have been perpetrated on the American people through a contrived inflation by every president from Franklin Roosevelt through Richard Nixon. 3, we should reduce the number of government bureaus, of government civilian employees, and the whole quantity of government by at least 50%. And we should achieve at least this much reduction in proper fashion through gradually convincing a majority of the American people of the wisdom of such a course. 4, we should withdraw all American troops from every spot on earth that is not American soil, except when and where such troops may be required as decided by Congress to protect American lives and property from criminal vandalism. 5, 5, we should get government out of the areas and functions and activities where government does not belong. Again, all steps to this end should be taken gradually, but nevertheless just as rapidly as enough of the American people can be persuaded to support such progress. Any such achievement will require a truly massive educational force, but that's exactly what we hope to build during the next 15 years. We could go ahead for at least 100 numbered items, but the John Birch Society will undoubtedly be working on more than that many specific projects, which will be laid out in its bulletins before another 180 months will have rolled around. And all of these projects will fit into the general pattern indicated by the 5 major objectives listed above. So let's really wind up this marathon monologue with one final thought. None of us can guarantee anything about what the future will bring. Your speaker knows what a job we have before us to rid our country of the scourge of communism within the next few years, and then to go ahead on our constructive program so well that 15 years from now we shall already be entering an era of far less government, of a much sounder sense of responsibility, and, with God's help, of a better world. But I sincerely believe that it can be done, and this much I know. If every man and woman in this audience should leave here tonight feeling in his or her own mind and heart that it can and must be done, then it surely will be. And so, all of you patriots of good character, good conscience, and noble ideals, whom we can reach with the filmed version of this speech in 1,000 other audiences, it is with a great deal of confidence and energizing will to win that we invite you to join us in our epic undertaking. While to all of you great, wonderful friends in this present audience, I certainly extend my very deep thanks indeed for so much patience and attention. Thank you and good night.
Wow, that doesn't get you excited and wanting to do something. I don't know what does. Coming from the founder himself.
Yes. Terrific speech. We do get quite a few people calling us that they found that on YouTube and they're saying, "Oh my God, this guy was so right." You know,
No, absolutely. You find that video and you find some of the other speeches that are available, and it makes you just, like, wow, how prolific and prophetic, he is and he was. To he outlines, at least in the first part of the speech, the first speech and the second speech, about the points of history, and pulling from his initial speech, back in 1958, 57, 58, about some of the things that to be aware of, the 10 points of things that are going to afflict this country. And look at us today. Look at where we are today, and look at some of the things that he prophetically called out and that are going on today. I'm going to have you answer that in a minute, but I first want to just share something with folks. If you want to know more about that initial speech that he references, with the founding of the John Birch Society, there's a book called simply The Blue Book of the John Birch Society. It's available for purchase to shopsjbs.org. I believe you can also download a copy through your JBS portal. If you log in to jbsarchives.org, you can go to books and download a copy if that's your preference, or again, you can get a copy by going to shopgbs.org. So with that being said, Kip, I want to go into a couple of the important points of, I think, what Robert Walsh was talking about. And my first question is this. In your words, what is the conspiracy?
The conspiracy is a group of people who have been working since almost the beginning of our country to undermine us, to use the wealth and power of America to create a global satanic government, one world government. That is the conspiracy. George Washington fought it. Abraham Lincoln fought it, and sometimes it got the better of him. It's been around. It is the root of all the problems we have in our country, or a lot of them. And its goal is to create a one world government and take God out of our lives. And when he mentions the conspirators, he's not saying they're just Democrat conspirators or they're Republican conspirators, but they're in both parties. And they have been for a long time. If you know, you're a student of history and the Revolutionary War, do you have a book called Washington's Crossing?
Yeah.
If you read an early page in that book, you'll see where Thomas Paine comes to America and he starts writing his great propaganda for us, common sense, things like that, encouraging the troops to keep fighting when it's a dark time for us after being defeated in New York and on Long Island. But it mentions that Paine was a radical and that he came here to help democratize the world, and that he saw in America the future power to do the work of worldwide revolution, and that he found out not too long after he got here that Washington appreciated his work, but did not agree that we would be leading a worldwide revolution when we won our independence if we did win. And you'll find later in history, Paine turned against Washington and the founders and the men of the Continental Army who had all agreed with Washington for the most part that they didn't want a worldwide revolution. They just wanted to take care of themselves. And you look at the worldview of Paine, who later got associated with the French Revolution and the Jacobins, almost lost his head in it. He denounced Washington, and some of his writings, like The Age of Reason and The Rights of Man, this is communistic. It's Agenda 21. It's calling for. He started off talking about freedom for the people, but the world he's envisioning is very similar to the world that the Bolsheviks wanted. And what they're working for even today with this new world order. So you'll see that this is a struggle since the beginning of our country, and every president had to deal with it in one way or another. Some agreed with it, some tried to stop it, or at least made an attempt at it. So history is fascinating, and the more we know about it, the better it will prepare us for this struggle.
Now, let me ask you a question, Kip. Just a follow up to that. So, if you understand that the conspiracy is as you suggest, and it's clearly documented in history as a force of people that seek to undermine the very institution that has created freedom, not known since the Republic of Rome, or even more so than that. If that's who these people are, my next question would be why. I mean, we know that the goal was to create this one world government and this new world order, but why would these folks want this? What is there to gain for them? Because if you look at the average American, most Americans might say that this is a bunch of gosh, that there's no such thing, there can't be, this is America, this would never happen here. And I'm sure you've heard all these same charges before, but I guess the biggest question I want to say is why would these conspirators want this? What is in it for them? What would be subversion of the American people to these ideals gain them in the long run? Is that a fair question?
It's very fair. and I get this a lot of times at street fair booths and even at meetings and speaker events, is because the average person doesn't think this way. Okay, the average person wants to take care of their family, see their kids go to college and have a good life and everything. The thought of power for the sake of power, which is what this is all about, this is what drives it. Power for the sake of power. George Orwell described it in 1984. Their power is the ability to stamp on a human face forever. Okay, and if that doesn't send a chill down your spine, I don't know what will.
How many fingers am I holding up?
3. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you.
You sure? You sure there's 3?
Well, since you got a gun back my head and you saying it's 2, I guess it's 2. So, but George Orwell said this. J. Edgar Hoover, back in around 1955 or so, I mean, I was only a couple of years old, said the American people have not come to grips with a conspiracy so monstrous as what we're facing. And I'm, paraphrasing that. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but J. Edgar Hoover knew it. And that's one of the reasons why he's smeared in history today, because he was trying to explain that to people way back then. So, and a very, very intelligent man who once wrote some important work on the conspiracy for the Birch Society, but he did do it anonymously. He said that there is a conspiracy. He wrote an excellent article about it, several articles about it. And he said the only way to defeat a conspiracy is to expose it. And the only way to preserve a conspiracy is to deny that it exists. And I might add that the communists themselves came up with this idea. Well, actually, they had it before. And to smear anybody who tries to expose the conspiracy, like they have done the John Birch Society and other people. So it's a vital part of their plan that they smear people and scare people away from even trying to expose the conspiracy because of the character assassination that will follow. Mm-hmm. That's what made Robert Welch such a great man. He said when he formed the society, I know I'll probably never have another peaceful day for the rest of my life. But he was determined to expose this conspiracy. And the fact that he laid such a foundation that this organization is still here 62 years later, he was a genius in that respect. And he was a true patriot. And I wish more people could get to know the history of Robert Welch, because he understood the conspiracy and he wasn't afraid to say it. Mm-hmm. And I want to add one other thing here, which is important. Do I have a few minutes?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This is something I would like to start having discussions with our members at chapters or video meetings, because I think it's really important, and it stems from the smear. There's really only 2 versions of history if you look at it. There's a conspiratorial version of history, which means that wars, famines, all these things are planned. Depressions, revolutions are planned. They don't just happen spontaneously. Right from the Communist Revolution in 1848, it happened spontaneously. No, it was planned in advance. And all of them are planned in advance. Sometimes some people might jumpstart them, but they're planned in advance. Now, if you don't believe in that, then you have to believe that everything just happens by accident. And think about everything in your life that there's a plan, okay? Retirement plan, vacation plan, Christmas plan, everything you got a plan. You can't build a house without a plan. You can't build a building without, everything's a plan. So to me, it seems absurd to even think that a war or anything like that just happens. No, they don't. And so if you use the term conspiratorial version of history versus accidental version of history, I think you're going to win your point almost all the time, because people are going to see the logic. So they throw a curveball by adding conspiratorial conspiracy theory as if it's not a proven fact. Well, there's literally hundreds of people in history who have talked about this conspiracy. Okay, George Washington talked about it. John Quincy Adams talked about it. Abraham Lincoln talked about it. Benjamin Disraeli, twice Prime Minister of England, talked about it. Winston Churchill, J. Edgar Hoover, and countless other people have not only talked about it, but described it. Woodrow Wilson, who got into power as president through the conspiracy, wrote about it right after he got elected. Now you better not dare talk about it above a whisper if you want to condemn it. So what's that say about conspiracy theory? It's not a theory, it's a fact. But look how they treat the theory of evolution like it is a law, but it's not. So you see the semantics here?
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think you can really take a look at this the way we're talking about it if you're all revved up thinking about the next election or the next political thing. This is a cerebral thing. And once you see how it's laid out, you won't be calling it a conspiracy theory, and you won't be letting your opponents describe you as a conspiracy theorist or a tin hat. If you go into history of the Communist Party, they set up a series of ways to be designed to intimidate people and smear them. Call them kooks, weirdos, tin hats. Well, we've heard all those terms. Most people wouldn't even know that they came from the Communist Party, but that's where they came from. And the Communist Party is the battle arm of the conspiracy. It's the way it was set up. As Karl Marx said himself. So I think if we keep on track here and remember these several basic steps, you will not let your opponents box you into a corner. And you should also start to realize that it's not just liberals that call us conspiracy theory and kooks and weirdos, that there's people on the right that do it too, from William F. Buckley up to Mark Levin and Rush Limbaugh. They've all made these kind of remarks about the John Birch Society, but yet they build themselves as conservatives.
Right.
And that's why I call myself a constitutionalist.
Conservatives. I mean, I think they also command an immense following of people, and then that in a lot of ways detracts from combating or attacking the root problem as we see it. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree with that, and I hope the way I explained that would be a help to other people who want to try to learn it. I know some people get all revved up and they're always just thinking conspiracy theory because they've been conditioned to think that way.
Right.
But to me, it is a conspiracy. And John McManus, the former president of the John Birch Society, always said, "We're not conspiracy theorists, we're conspiracy factists."
Yep.
But we have to understand this conspiracy if we're going to defeat it. And that's more important than the right versus left game, which was created by the conspiracy too.
So following on with that, I want to make a comment and two, ask another question. So for those that have never read or have never been exposed to the Communist Manifesto, here's the document itself. You can purchase this from shopjbs.org. You can find it online. If you haven't read that and seen what the actual text says, I suggest you do so sooner than later, because I think it gives a pretty good light into what's really going on and what the aims are from the communist standpoint, and what the goals and how they try to acquiesce submission.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. It's a very important document. You look how much it's had a terrible effect on the world since then, and millions of people who died because of that. And I would caution a lot of people that I know that have said they've read the Communist Manifesto. They tend to focus on the 10 planks, and they see how many planks that we're actually living under today. But one thing you have to read is the whole book,
Mm-hmm.
the whole document, because that's where cultural Marxism comes in, and he explains what you have to do to change society to
Right.
make these 10 planks happen, because they're not just going to happen. And it was a whole thing about, what they have to do to change people's minds about religion, the family, patriotism, their country, borders, all types of things. And you see that through Agenda 21 and the UN and all these things that John Birch Society has been warning people about. But that is the essence of where this all is coming from today, is the cultural Marxism from that Communist Manifesto.
Now, we've talked about, what the conspiracy is. We've talked about why the conspirators have initiated this drive towards submission of the common folk, if you want to call it that. My next question would be who's behind it, or what's behind the conspiracy? Like, if I was to walk outside my door, can I identify a conspirator, or could I identify an organization that is part of the conspiracy? Like, so we know what the conspiracy is, we know what their aims are, but who are they? Can we identify them? Can we, because if we don't know who they are, how can we subvert their actions?
Well, from what I've read and what people like John McManus and Bill Jasper and Art Thompson have discussed with me when I drive them around on speaker tours and things like that, is and it's in our books. You follow back, who are these people associated with? What organizations are they tied in with? What do these organizations represent? What do they promote? They are all interlocking to an extent. So if somebody maybe has they're involved with something which seems like a good work, for humanity, but you trace it back and you find that they're also involved with internationalist groups that are also funding the UN, and they're funding Agenda 21, or they're funding these things that dumb down our children through things like Common Core. Well, you can trace them back and you see the organization. It's not so much, you can't, unless they're walking around with a thing saying they support Agenda 21 or the UN on a bumper sticker. It would be hard to say. And some people are naive and they think that these organizations are doing great work. But trace back and see their history of who they're working with. And the line is pretty clear between the kind of world that we want to live in, with American freedom and the family and the country, and versus the totalitarian government that these other groups are leading to. So you have to do your homework. But you can see it. You can see it in the words politicians use. You can see it in their voting record. Robert Welch talked about how they were going to waste all this money and put us more in debt, take us up to gold standard. Well, when you see politicians voting for all these care packages around the world, which is a Marxist redistribution of wealth, well, they're certainly not representing the Americanist point of view. It's a globalist point of view. So
Right.
that to me is the easiest way. You got to do your research like everything else.
So if somebody was brand new to this, and keep in mind, this video will be shown to some members and maybe some non-members alike. So for somebody who's we'll just say first coming to some knowledge, maybe they're coming to the John Birch site for the first time after realizing that they feel like their freedoms are under attack with some of the lockdowns and some of the draconian measures with the COVID-19 things that we've seen over the last 8 to 10 months. And now they're coming to John Birch site for the first time, and we're introducing them to this topic of, okay, these lockdowns or these draconian measures are not the beginning. This is not something that's just brand new out of the blue, but there's actually more to it than that. There's a conspiracy, and you start to explain that to them. What's the best pay? Excuse me, correct. What is the best place for them to start? If they were to read a book or whether they were to watch a video, where should they start? What would be a good place for those that are watching today, or when this video is posted? What's a good place for them to start to um, um, enter their education or begin their education on the topic so they can become more informed?
Well, we do have a couple little booklets, and you have to find out if people are readers or if they're watchers. If they would prefer to watch a DVD, you can give them the Perloff DVD that we have, and a couple other things on the New World Order. If they like to read, I would recommend Shadows of Power, but maybe also suggest that they pick up this little like 25-page introductory booklet that we have on the CFR, so they would understand it, and maybe throw in the America versus the UN booklet that we have, kind of to kindle the fire.
Okay.
And if they read those two and then they want more, then you throw another log on and you give them the Shadows of Power.
Mhm.
And maybe at a future meeting you play that DVD with the group of veteran members, and the veteran members, after the video is over, you have a discussion with coffee and cake or something like that, and the members all chip in and give some perspective on the video, so the person understands that, hey, everybody started off here the same, or at a different level, but we try to bring everybody up. So that's the easiest thing. It is a time. It does take time. You can't like hold up a fire hose and force it down their mouth. You
Right.
have to go easy. And another thing is, they're going to find that some of the people that they thought were big heroes in their eyes, and they've been conditioned to think so, have really been working against the best interest of the country, and that's a culture shock. Some people can accept it and move on, and some well, I don't want to believe that. Well, you can't make somebody believe something if they don't want to believe it, and you can't make somebody read. You have to make it interesting, kind of like a novelist. What makes them want to turn the next page?
Mhm.
You have to get them interested, and if they get interested and fascinated in it, then they will read and they will study and they will talk to other members, especially veteran members who have a good background, and they'll just want to get information. And that's when you got the fire lit, and they'll probably end up being good members.
Great. So more, and this is kind of to summarize kind of what we talked about here. We've talked about what the conspiracy is, what are their aims and their goals, some of the people and organizations behind it, and kind of where to start to educate ourselves. Once we have all that, what do you suggest that we as members of the John Birch Society, as chapters, can do um, to take a stand, or what action can we take as a chapter, as an individual member? Because some folks that might watch this video might be at home, may not have a chapter that they belong to yet, or they may be trying to start one or want to associate with them, but they're not yet. So what do we do? What do we do with this information once we have it? Because there's a conspiracy. You understand you understand the foundation of that. You understand that its goal is to destroy America as we know it, and to set up a new world order, a one world government. And we know that there are individuals and organizations that are funding this idea, these revolutionary ideas. We know that there are some ways to introduce ourselves to it, but then what? Then what do we do?
Well, and I'm hoping I'm answering this the right way. I think once that they understand how important it is to do this work, and they realize that we've helped them to understand something that they probably wouldn't have found out on their own, or we've at least accelerated their progress. They have to get over the fact that this is a shock to the system, and they have to find a voice, because it's important. We want to save our country. They have to start discussing this with people that may be like-minded, or other people who they know have been searching for answers, and saying, look, we've been thinking this is a problem that could only be solved by politics, but it's deeper than that. And then they have to try to work with these people and explain what they've learned and hope that they can light the fire in them to do it. We can't just take this knowledge we have and stay home with it. And if you're a home chapter member, you don't just go argue with your next door neighbor or some guy you work with. You try to find people who agree with you. And if you agree with them on several different points, well, try them out on this, and you might be surprised that, yeah, they've been thinking something's wrong a long time, but they didn't know what the problem was. And then they'll be grateful to you for showing them. And I hope that's the bet. I hope that's a good explanation.
No, I think that's great. And I think that, just having that understanding of kind of what's going on, who's behind it and how we can do something about it. I think that's the essence of the John Birch Society is, the three planks in my head of, what's going on, education, who's behind it, more advanced education, and then what can we do individually? Again, we're talking about more education, but now what do we do after that? It's sharing that information and being that voice, to let other people know, to be that beacon, to be that light, this, on the top of the hill, to shine forth, to let people know, hey, this is a problem. This is why it's a problem. And it's, so we've gone from education, to activating others towards, their own knowledge. And hopefully over time, that informed electorate is going to be what can change a lot of the, things that are going on by exposing, the conspiracy, and we expose it by education. So I think that's those are some great points. So I mean, here we are ending a year 2020. It's been quite a tumultuous year in a lot of respects. I think more tumultuous, not in the sense of our health and wellness, as some might want to argue that it has, but I think it's been very, very detrimental to American freedoms and the American way of life. So as we go into 2021, Kip, what are some of your thoughts on what we can do, or what things we can kind of organize our time and efforts towards, and do you have some final words for the members, as we're celebrating Christmas next week, and then going into a new year? I mean, seems like there's a lot of unfinished business, a lot of action that still needs to take place. um, what are some final things you'd like to share with us as a chapter before the year ends and as we go into a new year?
Well, first of all, if somebody had told me last December that we would lose half of our videos, we would have no street fairs, uh, and that all these terrible things would be happening to our constitutional freedoms, I would have been stunned, and I would have said, well, it's over. But I look at what happened because of the resiliency of our members. Okay, we lost all the street fairs, the 60 or so we usually do, but we did 38 to 40 rallies. In fact, we have people out at a rally in Harrisburg today in Pennsylvania. 40 rallies where we handed out close to $3,000 worth of material. And we got all types of leads from that and signed up members from that. Then we couldn't do our regular meetings after March with the videos, but we started doing Zoom and webinars. And guess what? We ended up doing as many of them as we did with the videos. And as a result, we had our second biggest year we've ever had back here while I'm on staff in gaining new members and retaining members. And to me, this just shows that our members are going to stick it out, and we're going to work hard. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. We survived this year, and we're going to go into 2021 thinking that no matter what comes our way, we're going to find a way to get around it, and we're going to keep working and building. And that can't just come from the coordinator. That has to come from the members who are willing to do the work and be there to help new people understand what we're trying to accomplish. So I'm very proud of our membership this year. I'm always proud of what they do, but the fact that we got a big curveball thrown at us this year, and I think it would have devastated a lot of other organizations, but here and around the country, we continued to grow, and we made do with what we had, and we were successful. And I wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a happy and healthy New Year. And I'm really looking forward to getting a full year in with your new chapter up there and watching it grow. You're doing a terrific job. And we added 4 new chapters this year in spite of the lockdowns. The best year I ever had any new chapters. We have 5 on the burner for next year. It could be coming on by like March or April. So we didn't give in, and we're still standing, and we're going to keep growing and building. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kip, and thank you to all the folks, members that are going to be watching this, in the next few days. I just want to let you know that I appreciate each and every one of you for your dedication, your time, your commitment. We might have a small chapter at the moment, but there are plans in the works, and there are some ideas in the works, and I challenge each and every one of you to not give up, despite what may or may not happen with our presidential situation. According to the recent numbers and the way things look, Joe Biden, appears to be the one that's going to be inaugurated in January. That being the case or not being the case doesn't really matter, because I think each and every one of you have shown in the last so many months that you're dedicated to the cause regardless. You understand the timely importance of doing the work that you do. We've already attended 2 or 3 rallies. We've made some contacts with other folks and other organizations. We have done some great work with the local sheriffs already. We've done a lot of different things. We've shared a lot of material. There's been hundreds of dollars spent on that, of course. But all in all, we continue to each and every month strive for a better and a brighter America. And we do that through our local chapters. I see a brighter and better Central New York, Syracuse area, New York in general. We may have some things that are difficult to deal with, but our members are what keeps us alive and what keeps the work ever more important every day. And as Robert Welch said, each of us, each member is important. It's not me, it's not Kip, it's not Bill Hahn. It's each and every one of us working collectively towards the goal of education and action that is what's going to make that difference. And when you're sitting at home and you're bored, or it's cold outside and there's nothing to do, or all the places that you usually frequent are closed down, just take a moment to think about how things used to be. Think about for that short moment, think about the time of the revolution. Think about the time when this country was being accosted from a force so powerful 3,500 miles away, and how they sat together in their homes and in their taverns and in their and everywhere they went. They sought fellowship, and they sought community in secrecy at times, but they did so because they understood what was on the line. They understood that this country, this America that was going to be the greatest country on the face of the earth, and it was going to be so with and by the grace of God. And I think as we progress towards this next week, towards Christmas, I think it's an especially important time to think about, by the grace of God, that we are here today. And that when it is, I look behind, I see in Kip's video, it's getting dark where he's at, and you can see the snow on the ground. But I think a great person once told me that, the changing of the seasons and the cold and the snow also gives us a reminder of who we are as human beings. We live in an age where we're being attacked left and right, where decency and humanity, human morality and charity are looked down upon as values and virtues that are old-fashioned, things that are just to be left in the dustbin of history. But we know the truth. The truth is, the fact is this: The cold and the leaves on the ground remind us that one day we're all going to die, and we're going to have to give an account for what we did or didn't do. And I think as members of John Birch Society, I want to look back and say, I see the decrepitness of the world that we live in and the struggles that we all live with. But when I die, when I face that darkened day, I want to be able to look back and say, I did something. I stood up. I took a stand. I educated myself, I educated others, and even though I may not have had to take up arms like Washington and Arnold, well, he had his own issues, but and many of the other, great revolutionaries of our forefathers, while I may not have been somebody who signed my name to the documents of this great country that established our constitutional republic, I still have a responsibility and an honor and a duty to be an American, to hold these truths and to perpetuate them to my family and to my children's and their children and so on and so forth. And I think that honor, that duty is our revolutionary duty, because today we are the revolution in a way, because when everybody else is saying that life is good and there's nothing wrong and we should just acquiesce and do whatever they tell us to do, because by not doing so you're a revolutionary, by gosh golly, yeah, I'm a revolutionary. Because you know what, so were my forefathers and so were your forefathers, and they were revolutionaries that got it done, that believed that even when all the odds were against them, even when they were surrounded, when they had no men, when their enlistments were going to run out and they were not going to be able to make it to the January 1st, and they were going to have to give in, what happened? By the grace of God, they were victorious. And one thing happened, and another thing happened, and another thing happened, by the grace of God and by the commitment of others together. So I think that as we end this year and go into another year, I'm thankful for each and every one of you. I'm thankful for Kip, who has continued to support us. I don't look at this year as a year that, was bad. I look at this as a year that shows us the importance of the duty and the honor that we have to honor and to be active in our country, to be able to be the people that stand here in this time and this phase of life and of eternity, and say, I'm not going to give in, I'm not going to give up, I'm going to raise the banner of truth, and we are going to do this together, for the greater glory of God and the salvation of the souls of the people in this country. And I think if we do that, if we stand together and we work together, I think we can affect one of the greatest generations yet to come. And it's by your help, my help, and everybody's that is engaged in this effort. This is an amazing time to be in, and I like to think of it as this is in the closing sentences. Um, now's the time. What now's the time. You have to choose which side you want to be on. And I will say this: we all know how it's going to end. I know how it's going to end. If you knew right now, if you knew that if you were going to go into a battle and you knew that you could pick a side, on one side, you knew that you were going to win. You were going to win the battle no matter what. On the other side, you knew that you weren't going to win the battle. What side would you choose? I'm hoping you would choose the side that would win, because I think we're intrinsically we're winners, and we know by salvation history and history otherwise, we know that we're going to win. It may not be tomorrow, it may not be next week or next year, but we will win. And I want you to be counted on the side that's good, that we know is going to win. And that side is been in existence since 1958. It's the John Birch Society, and together we are going to affect the change that matters. And let's stand up, let's stand strong, let's stand tall and together, and we will be the looked down as one of the greatest generations that ever lived because of our action. So thank you all for your commitment and your dedication to all of what we've talked about today. Educate yourself, understand the conspiracy a little bit more. Take those tips from Kip that we've talked about today, and try to, whether by video or by book or pamphlet, educate yourself and others. And have a Merry Christmas, and we will see you all soon in January as we get ready to embark on another year of action, both here and throughout the region. Kip, I want to thank you for everything, and I appreciate your coming on here today with us. Any other things you want to share with us before we head out here?
No, I just want to thank everybody again. It's been a pleasure getting to know the members out there in the Syracuse area. And thanks to Joe for putting the chapter together. And just God bless all of you and have a Merry Christmas. And I look forward to seeing you at a meeting sometime next year. I have resolved I am going to get out to Syracuse and see you guys.
Well, that's great. Well, again, thank you all. Thank you, Kip. And we'll all see you very soon. Look for this video on YouTube as soon as we can get it up there. And then until we see each other again, God bless, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year.
Same to you. Take care.
All right.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Kip. Take care.
Bye-bye.